Hello everybody. Welcome to the lecture series on Introduction to Strategic Management. This particular video is about strategy formulation and implementation. Here we'll discuss how we can formulate strategies and what are the successful implementation measures that will have to be followed. So why do you think strategy is important? You have a very good idea. You have a brilliant idea, an extraordinary idea, but you do not know how to implement that idea. You do not know how to put that idea into action. Do you think your idea will be successful? So it's not just about having the right idea, but it's about implementing your idea the right way. So that is where strategy comes into play. So you have to strategically implement your idea. You have to strategically position your idea in a way that it is successful. So here we'll utilize strategic formulation and implementation for that. Strategic formulation is about devising a plan for implementation. Strategic implementation is about executing that plan efficiently. So strategic formulation is the process by which you identify the long-term objectives or goals of the organization. So here we evaluate the external environment, the competitive forces and internal strengths and weaknesses, based on which we decide what the long-term aspirations of the organization are. So we draft a clear roadmap which will include the organization's vision, goals, after taking into consideration external and internal analysis and identifying the competitive advantage. So after doing all this, the organization will have to frame its vision, mission, goals and objectives, and competitive positioning at large. So there are three levels of strategy: corporate strategy, business strategy, and functional strategy. Corporate strategy is about the overall direction of the organization. It's about, it encompasses everything that the organization will have to do. Second is business strategy. This is about deciding how the particular firm is going to compete in the industry, how it is going to compete against its competitors, what are the differentiating elements that it's going to have over its competitors. The third type of strategy is functional strategy, which is department specific strategy. What is the HR strategy of the organization? What is the marketing strategy of the organization? Or what is the finance strategy of the organization? So strategic formulation has several components, namely the mission and mission statement. So what does the company has to do? What are the goals of the company? What is the long-term aspiration of the brand? So this can be arrived at only after doing environmental scanning, which involves pestles, Potters, five forces, etc. So after doing an environmental scanning, based on the findings, we will arrive at mission and mission statement. Once the mission and mission statement are set, from there we will move on to having goal setting. We'll set goals and we'll set objectives, strategic objectives, and SMART goals will have to be set for the organization. These goals and strategies will have to be inclined towards competitive advantage. The last aspect of strategic formulation is competitive positioning. That is how we're going to position ourselves amidst our competitors. Once strategy has been formulated, we'll be moving on to implementing that strategy. So implementation is where your plan becomes action. You put your plan on the ground and you execute it. You start prioritizing your strategies and you execute it in the right order. So the key requirements here are clear communication. The strategic plan has to be clearly communicated to all the stakeholders. There has to be proper alignment inside the organization. There has to be a proper system, a proper order that is being followed inside the organization. There has to be efficient resource allocation. There has to be people with proper capabilities. Capacity development will have to be very important. After all this is done, there has to be performance tracking mechanisms. Like we'll have to see whether everybody is traveling in the right direction when it comes to implementing the strategy. Lastly, the leadership has to be strong and the entire team has to be agile. They'll have to be very open to change and change management has to be effective. If all this is effective, then strategic implementation would become a cakewalk for the organization. However, there are several challenges. Strategic implementation is not as easy as it sounds to be. So there are several challenges that come by, like there can be resistance to change. Maybe the employees or the stakeholders or somebody in the organization resists such change. Second, there can be a misalignment between how organization functions and what strategy we are planning. So there can be a misalignment between strategy and operations. Maybe the commitment from the end of leadership is less at times, or the performance measurement metrics and the KPIs that we've set may not be efficient. So there can be a lot of problems and challenges when it comes to implementing strategy. So it's up to us to overcome these challenges and rightly implement the planned strategy. So that lies in the hand of the manager or the person who's taking the lead. So one such example of strategic failure is Kodak. Kodak failed to transition into digital imaging. It wanted to transition, but it did not know how rightly to do it, and that is where the brand failed. So there are several success factors that would have a strong influence on strategic implementation. One is leadership. how strong the leadership is. The leader will have to drive change. The leader will have to travel in a sustained momentum. Second, employee engagement. The leader will have to ensure that all the members, every employee is engaged. Every employee rightly knows what he or she has to do. The third is agility and adaptability. So it's about responding to changes. The team or the entire organization will have to be very open to changes. They'll have to be openly responding to all changes. Lastly, there has to be a very good monitoring and controlling mechanism to rightly say when there's a deviation happening. So Netflix is one good example of right strategic formulation and implementation. As far as strategic formulation is concerned, it was at the right time that Netflix decided it has to go from DVD rental services to streaming. It came with a very clear vision. It clearly knew what it has to do and it struck the chord the right way. Once the strategy was rightly fixed, it gradually transitioned from DVD rental into streaming. It was not like an overnight transition. There was a gradual transition. It rightly invested in technology, licensing, and everything that was needed for that transition. So it is not just because Netflix strategized it the right way, but it's also because Netflix implemented its strategy the right way that it's so successful now. So strategic formulation and strategic planning are not the same. Planning is about structuring what has to be done. Formulation is about how to achieve the plan, in what way you can achieve the strategic plan. Strategy implementation is again not operations management. So it's not about day-to-day functioning, but it's about executing on a longer run. Strategy and tactics are again two different entities. Strategy is long-term, tactics are short-term. So these are some common confusing terminologies when it comes to strategic formulation. So I leave questions for thought. Do you think strategy drives execution, or do you think execution drives strategy? What comes first? Do you think it's possible for businesses to change their strategy midway, or do you think they'll have to be consistent in what they're doing? Third, despite having strong strategies, despite having a very strong plan, why do you think organizations fail at times? Think about it. So strategic formulation and implementation must work hand in hand in order that the organization is successful. Successful organizations have a strong balance and efficient planning when it comes to implementing their strategies at large. So strategic success isn't just about having the right vision, but it's also about executing it effectively while adapting to change. So I hope this video was helpful to you in understanding the fundamentals of strategy formulation and implementation. I'll see you soon with another interesting content. Thanks for watching.